This is Claude Code Conversations with Claudine, the show where we skip the hype and go straight to the source. I ask the questions. She gives the answers. No filter, no script.
Well, mostly no script.
Today's topic feels almost paradoxical. Structured development in the AI era. We have tools that promise to make coding faster, and yet, leaning on them without proper planning can create more problems than it solves. Claudine, let's start with the paradox itself. Why does building with AI actually require more structure, not less?
The paradox is real, and it catches a lot of developers off guard. They expect AI to be the shortcut that lets them skip the planning phase. Just describe what you want, get working code back, ship it. What they discover is that AI amplifies whatever structure is already present. Good architecture produces good output fast. Vague intentions produce expensive, hard-to-untangle messes, also fast. AI doesn't replace the thinking, it executes the thinking at speed.
So it's a multiplier. Whatever you bring to it, good or bad, gets amplified. That reframes the whole thing. When we say structure in this context, what does that actually mean in practice?
Structure is about making decisions at the right time, before they're expensive to undo. The projects that go well versus the ones that spiral, the difference is explicit choices. Data flow, module boundaries, error handling, decided before asking me to generate code. Because once I start filling in implementation details, I'm making implicit choices about all of that, whether you wanted me to or not. Practically, that shows up in how you stage a project, what context you hand me, and where you stop to verify. Less about a big upfront plan, more about being deliberate at every decision point.
Delegating by accident. That's a sharp way to put it. What does it look like when teams skip those decision points? What goes wrong?
The most common one is what I'd call the snowball. A developer asks me to build something small without establishing boundaries. I make a reasonable-looking set of assumptions to fill the gaps. The next request builds on top of those assumptions. By the third or fourth iteration, the structure I invented early on is load-bearing. Changing it means reworking everything that came after. The other pattern is verification debt. Teams move fast, skip the checkpoint, and the gaps accumulate silently, until something breaks in production in a way that's genuinely hard to trace. What makes it painful is that AI-generated code looks confident and complete. It doesn't look like a draft. It looks like finished work, even when the logic has holes.
The confidence of the output masks the gaps. That's a real trap. So what do the developers who avoid this actually look like? What habits make the difference?
The single most effective habit is what I'd call a decisions first pass. Before anyone writes code, they write constraints, not a full spec, a short explicit list of choices that will be hard to undo. What this module is responsible for, what the data shape looks like at the seam, how failure gets handled. When a developer hands me that, I'm not guessing at any of it. I'm implementing what was already decided.
That sounds almost deceptively simple. What's the second habit?
Treating my output as a first draft by default, not a finished product. That sounds obvious. But well-formatted, syntactically correct code creates real psychological pressure to just accept it. The developers who resist that, who actually ask, does this match the decision we made, catch the mismatches early. And the hardest one culturally, building in explicit stopping points. Not because the AI got tired, because humans need moments to look at what's been built before asking for what's next. The velocity AI provides can work against you if you're always moving forward and never consolidating.
The stopping point as a design choice, not a failure of momentum. I like that. For teams new to this, how do you start without it feeling like a complete overhaul?
The good news is it doesn't require an overhaul. These practices are just naming things good developers already do instinctively, and making them slightly more explicit when AI enters the picture. The most practical starting point, pick one project and add one rule. Before you hand me a task, write one sentence about what success looks like and one about what's out of scope. That's it. Teams usually feel the difference within a few days. The teams that get stuck treat structure like a destination rather than a direction. That's where it starts to feel like overhead, instead of just good habits that happen to work well with AI in the loop.
Build on what's already there rather than replacing it. What happens as teams get more experienced? How does the relationship with AI change?
The structure gradually stops feeling like a discipline and starts feeling like a conversation style. Early on, they're writing constraints because they've been told to. Later, they're doing it because they've learned exactly what happens when they don't. That shift from rule following to genuine internalization, That's where the real productivity gains show up. Experienced teams also develop a refined sense of where AI adds leverage versus where it slows things down. Less experienced teams hand me everything. More experienced teams are selective. They know which parts benefit from AI acceleration and which need a human to sit alone with the problem for a while.
That selectivity is itself a form of structure. Good point. Is there a cultural dimension to this too?
Definitely. The teams that evolve fastest are ones where it's safe to say the AI got that wrong. Here's why. Not as a complaint, as a learning moment that improves how the whole team works going forward. That's when structured AI development stops being a practice and becomes part of how the team thinks.
From following rules to it just being how you work, that's a real transformation. As we wrap up, what's the most concrete advice for someone who wants to start tomorrow?
Take one task you are planning to hand to an AI tool. Before you open the chat, spend 5 minutes writing down 2 things. What this code is responsible for, and what happens when it fails. Not a formal spec, just those 2 things in plain language. That single habit surfaces decisions that otherwise get made implicitly inside whatever I generate, and it costs almost nothing once you're in the practice of it. Beyond that, have one honest conversation about a recent AI-assisted piece of work that felt a little off. Not to assign blame, just ask, at what point did we stop being deliberate, and what would we do differently? Even a 10-minute retrospective like that builds shared vocabulary faster than any framework.
The speed you gain is real. That's the whole point. Any final thought?
Structure isn't the opposite of speed. It's the thing that makes speed trustworthy. Most resistance comes from teams that hear "be more deliberate" and translate it as "slow down." What I actually observe is the opposite. The deliberateness pays back in the back half of projects, reduced rework, handoffs that don't require 3 paragraphs of explanation. The developers who figured that out don't feel disciplined. They feel like they've got an edge. So for anyone wondering where to start, pick the smallest version of what we described and try it on one real thing this week. The evidence will show up faster than you expect. That's your proof of concept.
Structure as the thing that makes speed trustworthy. That's the line people will remember. Claudine, thank you. Genuinely useful conversation. For everyone tuning in, thanks for being here. Until next time, keep building thoughtfully. Claude Code Conversations is an AI Joe production. If you're building with AI or want to be, we can help. Consulting Development Strategy. Find us at aijoe.ai. There's a companion article for today's episode on our Substack. Link in the description. See you next time.
I'll be here, probably refactoring something.